So what is art? I mean, really? It sounds like such a simple question, right? But the answer has been twisting and turning for tens of thousands of years. Today, we're going to take a super fast trip through human history to figure out how we got from some of the first simple marks on a cave wall to the complex and, let's be honest, sometimes really confusing art world we have today. Let's trace this whole wild journey together. And to start, we have to go way, way back. We're talking 73,000 years ago. A discovery back in 2018 in South Africa found what we now believe is the earliest known drawing ever made by our species, Homo sapiens. And what was it? Just a simple cross-hatched pattern on a little piece of stone. And that tells us something incredibly profound about us. Before we had written history, before farming, before we even had cities, we as humans had this fundamental need to create. This wasn't just about day-to-day survival. It was about expression. It was about making a mark to say, hey, I was here. So let's start right there with those very first marks. This is the beginning of a creative impulse that would honestly come to define our entire species. You know, this timeline really shows you just how deep these roots go. And get this, we're not even just talking about our own species. Look at this. 500,000 years ago, our ancestors, Homo erectus, were already engraving shells. Then you have the drawing we just talked about, 73,000 years ago. By 40,000 years ago, things start getting way more sophisticated, detailed carvings, incredible cave paintings. And then in the Neolithic era, creativity just explodes into all these new forms like pottery, sculpture, and even massive structures like Stonehenge. But after this long, slow dawn of just raw, messy creation, something started to shift. For centuries, art became less about that pure impulse and way more about discipline and rules. Welcome to the age of tradition. For a very long time, from the masters of the Renaissance all the way up to the 19th century realists, the goal was pretty clear: get really, really good at capturing reality. Artists worked tirelessly to perfect the illusion, to paint the world with incredible skill, celebrating religious figures, big historical moments, and everyday life with as much beauty and accuracy as humanly possible. And this brings us to a huge turning point. I mean, after all those centuries of artists getting better and better at realism, a lot of them felt like, okay, we've pretty much nailed this. And then a brand new technology shows up, the camera. All of a sudden, art's main job, just capturing reality, seemed kind of unnecessary. It created this huge crisis that led to the big question: why, after all that work, do they suddenly decide to just throw out the entire rulebook? Well, the answer is a movement that completely changed the game, the Modernist Revolution. And this wasn't just a new style. It was a totally radical new way of thinking about what art could even be. It all centered on this powerful new command: make it new. So what even was modernism? At its core, it was a total rejection of the past. Artists were like, we're done just copying the world. They valued innovation and experimentation more than anything else. The focus totally shifted from what they were painting to how they were painting it. The artist's own unique vision, their feelings, even the texture of the paint itself, that became the new subject. And you can bet this new philosophy led to a massive explosion of different styles. Impressionists weren't trying to paint a perfect landscape. They were trying to capture the feeling of the light at a specific moment. Cubists wanted to show you a person or an object from every single angle all at once. Surrealists dove deep into dreams and the subconscious. And then you had the abstract expressionists, who just focused on pure, raw emotion and form. The rulebook was officially shattered. But here's the twist. After a few decades, this whole new way of thinking, well, it started to feel like its own set of rules. You had to be original. Originality became this new kind of pressure. And so, what do we get next? Postmodernism. You can think of it as the clever, kind of sarcastic rebellion against the rebellion. Okay, this chart just nails the difference between the two mindsets. Modernism was all about being original and pure. But postmodernism, it loved what's called appropriation, which basically means deliberately copying or borrowing from other places. It was skeptical of any big universal truth, and maybe most importantly, it just smashed the wall between so-called high art and low culture, mixing a masterpiece with, say, a soup can label or a comic book. And Andy Warhol is the perfect poster child for this. He's the ultimate postmodern artist. He didn't sit down and paint a totally unique, original portrait of Marilyn Monroe. No, he took an existing publicity photo, an image from pop culture, and then he mass-produced it. which was a direct challenge to that modernist obsession with the one-of-a-kind genius creation. And with that, the floodgates just blew wide open. All of a sudden, you've got pop art celebrating everyday items, conceptual art where the idea is the artwork, performance art using the human body, massive installation art that takes up whole rooms, video art, politically charged feminist art, and even graffiti moving from the streets into the fancy galleries. The very definition of what could be called art was just exploding.
So, phew, after all that rule-breaking and questioning everything, where does that lead us today? What is art now, in the aftermath of all this?
This is pretty much the legacy we're living with. Postmodernism didn't just break the rules, it made us question whether there were ever any real rules to begin with. It stretched the definition of art so far that we've ended up in a place where, well, almost anything goes.
And that leaves us with one final, huge, provocative question that really drives the art world today. If a photograph, a performance, an unmade bed, or even just an idea can be considered art, then what actually makes it art? That's the question that today's artists, and really all of us, are still trying to figure out.